And we are live. We are live, ladies and gentlemen. As usual, before we cam up, going to give a short preamble to what we're talking about. And this is a follow-up, a second part to the series answering the question, why you should meditate. So someone whispered to me asking, why should I meditate? So I made a video calling Why You Should Meditate. Part one was about concentration. Go back and watch that part. Even I rewatched it, okay? So go back and watch it. Even if you watched it before, go ahead and rewatch it again when you have the time, of course. Today, we're going to be talking about equanimity, which is the second part. This is going to be a four-part series. One is concentration. Secondly is equanimity. Third is sensory clarity. And the fourth one will be space for freedom. Space for freedom will be the most abstract one, okay? Concentration is a visceral, intuitive capacity that we can all understand. Equanimity, we'll get into it a little bit and we can understand it. Think about it as relaxation. Think about it as floating. Think about it as being in harmony with both the internal and external environment. So it's something that is also, if I dare say myself, something that is also intuitive. So before we play our theme song and then cam up and then get into this, whereby we state the hypothesis, we begin to challenge and assail the hypothesis with all kinds of assaults to see if it stands up. Let's see if indeed meditation gives us equanimity, and let's see if the utility of equanimity, that is such that it is worth the cost of the discipline. Okay, so let's go ahead and play the theme song of The Battle Within. Enjoy.
On the shore, relentless in the war, the legions in our hearts, shed waters in our voice, the spirit and the flesh, the emotions that arrest, the cerebral will contest, propelling the unrest. Preachers and bandits with means underhanded, the teachers pedantic and lack understanding. So sweep out the sand with the broom in your hand, stand up, make we burn Babylon. Guess I can give the world to you, but the falling of the curtain is for certain. Be careful where you're lurking, demons searching. The spirit and the women fight the battle within. Cause I can give the world to you, but the falling of the curtain is for certain. Be careful where you're lurking, demons searching. The spirit and the women fight the battle within. With the semblance of a blaze, with gratitude and rage, we touch another page with delirious delight, impervious to light. This vitality and might encourages the flight. Preachers and bandits with means underhanded, the teachers pedantic and lack understanding. So sweep out the sand with the broom in your hand, stand up, make we burn Babylon. Guess I can give the world to you, but the falling of the curtain is for certain. Be careful where you're lurking, demons searching. The spirit and the women fight the battle within. Guess I can give the world to you, but the falling of the curtain is for certain. Be careful where you're lurking, demons searching. The spirit and the women fight the battle within. But the falling of the curtain is for certain. Be careful where you're lurking, demons searching. The spirit and the women fight the battle within. Cause I can give the world to you, but the falling of the curtain is for certain. Be careful where you're lurking, demons on searching. The spirit and the wind will fight the battle within.
Hello. Shout out to L Boyd. Shout out to Jessica X. Shout out to Nicer in the house. Shout out to everyone in the chat. How's everybody doing? I hope we are all well. I hope we are all feeling relaxed. I hope we're all having a good day today. I hope we all had a good day today, and we're going to be having a great night or an early morning regarding or regardless, dependent upon where you are. So this is the second part in the series that I'm calling Why Should You Meditate? And this second word, okay, this word equanimity is not very commonly used, okay? It's not very commonly used. But really it's about mental calmness, composure, right? Evenness of temper, so on and so forth. But really it's about balance and so on and so on and so on. The last stream we talked about concentration. We said meditation gives you the ability to concentrate. Concentration is about focus. It's about being able to isolate, disambiguate, disaggregate. We said that focus and perception precedes control. We talked about the ubiquity of the utility of concentration, that it is the base of the pyramid in many, many, many endeavors, whether it be physical endeavors or intellectual endeavors, artistic and aesthetic endeavors. Okay? We talked about why concentration is important, not only in this particular domain, but also in the domain of subjective consciousness. That you need to be able to isolate, disambiguate, disaggregate, and focus and concentrate in order for you to be able to forge the tools of self mastery. And we talked about how meditation does that. So go back and definitely watch that video. Okay? That video. Rocky N, you're correct. Rocky says athletes, soldiers, and people in power use different meditation, different types of meditation. Okay, usually under different names. Exactly. So you've heard Mike Tyson talk about meditation. You heard Kobe Bryant tell you about meditation. Snipers, we know, are in the flow state when they're doing their thing. There's something about excellence in all these domains. As they say, success leaves clues. Okay? When you keep hearing the same thing over and over and over again, from CEO types all the way to Iron Mike, they keep saying the same kinds of things. Well, maybe there's something to it, right? Maybe there's something to this meditation game with regards to excellence of all kinds. Maybe it does indeed form the base of the pyramid upon which everything else is built. After all, in order to master anything, you need to be able to master yourself, the instrument that does all these different things. So today we'll be talking about equanimity. And as usual, we will talk about it in a way that allows us to elucidate, and illuminate the word by putting all kinds of other tangential and related words around it and describing it so that we can put context around the way in which the particular context in which we're talking about equanimity. Okay, so let me go about it this way. Why is equanimity useful? Equanimity is useful first and foremost, okay, this is a very simple one, is because it is the flip side of concentration. And if you watched the previous stream, which you should definitely go back and watch after this one, the one about concentration, you would see that we touched upon this, that there is a virtuous circle, a snowballing effect, a mutual reinforcement between concentration and relaxation. To use that word relaxation instead of equanimity in this particular case. In other words, if concentration is Focus implies that you relax everything into the background and you only bring forward that which needs to be focused on. If I said, hey, focus, a lot of people, or the first step that you usually take is to go, okay, loosen up, breathe, relax, let me focus, right? Let me get a one in the chat if you understand so that we don't dwell upon this particular aspect for too long, because this is just a throwaway line here. The first part, why is it useful? Why is it useful? It's because it's the flip side of concentration. Previous video, we went for almost 2 hours about concentration, okay? What it is, its utility, how it crosses many different domains, how meditation actually does help it, and how it is absolutely necessary for all kinds of endeavors, whether they be physical, mental, but definitely for mastery of self, mastery of the feeling, image, and talk complex. So let me get a one in the chat if it is relatively clear that relaxation is the flip side of concentration. Hence, you can start from concentration and then you immediately get relaxed. If I told you, hey, concentrate on the sound, the furthest sound that you can hear. Listen to the furthest sound you can hear. You immediately relax. You get rid of all the superfluous activity, all the superfluous energy or distractions, and you bring to the forefront that which needs to be concentrated on. You focus, in other words, you separate, you disaggregate, you disambiguate, and you relax everything else. So concentration brings forth relaxation, and relaxation brings forth concentration. Okay? So that's the first reason why you want to develop this ability to be equanimous, to be in a state of equanimity, to be in a state of relaxation, to be in a state of ease. Okay? So that one is straightforward. Very straightforward. L. Boyd says the mini fridge in my room, I hear it. Indeed, indeed, indeed. So, what is another aspect? And this aspect here, number two, we're going to call balance. And we're going to immediately throw in an analogy, a visual, something that'll help us understand this. And what I mean, or what I'm going to throw in here is, let me see if I can write it in a different color. Floating, okay? Float, to float, to float, to float in water, to thread water, okay? We all know that you cannot thread water, you cannot float without being relaxed, okay? So this balance aspect that we're talking about here, not other than just being, okay, it's the flip side of concentration. Why is it also useful? And how do we start begin to see how it can spread across many domains? Well, this aspect of balance, well, when you think balance, okay, we think, well, many things, yeah, balance is good. Balance in my life, work-life balance, balanced budget, balanced diet, balancing on one foot. So let's talk about balance. Let's talk about equanimity vis-a-vis the visual of swimming and floating. There are several aspects to it that I would like to touch on. Okay. And one of it is harmony. Okay. In order to float, you do not fight the water, right? If you fight the water, you're going to drown. In other words, you have to be in a state of oneness, if you will, in a state of oneness with the water. Don't fight the water. So now let's immediately relate this to the domain which we know we're talking about. Obviously, we know that all the capacities developed as a result of meditation apply to mental activity, physical activity, but the base of it all is in your subjective consciousness. So let's take it there. In order to float, you need to be in a state of equanimity. If you fight the water, you will drown. You need to flow with the water. There is a give and take. You need to be in a state of harmony with the water. So I'm going to put one word here, okay? Harmony. And how does this relate to the feeling, image, and talk? Okay, we all know our favorite word, right? Our favorite three words, okay? And we put it into one little tight little box here, fit, feeling, okay? Feeling, image, and talk. And for anyone who's new to the channel, this is our subjective consciousness. Everything that ever happens to you, everything that you are, everything you will ever experience can be parameterized, can be described as a combination of feeling in the body, emotions, and perceptions, and then image and talk in the head, which are the realm of thoughts, the realm of dreams, the realm of mental activity. They affect each other. Pain in your back will cause images in your head and talk in your head. Talk in your head will cause you to clench your teeth and raise your heart rate. Raised heart rate will cause you to have anxious feelings, which gives you thoughts in your head about, well, who's looking at me? And then that'll cause you to sweat. In other words, feeling, image, and talk. Okay. The entirety of subjective consciousness, the entirety of everything that we're trying to master, the thing that causes heartache and elation and joy and makes you want to kill yourself and also then makes you want to live, everything is feeling, image, and talk. So, in the realm of feeling, image, and talk, the ability to be equanimous with it is, we have to create this analogy here with the floating, whereby we're floating and we're being one with the water. Over here, the feeling, image, and talk trifecta is the water. Yesterday or the day before, whenever we did the concentration episode, we talked about, we used the weather analogy. We said feeling, image, and talk, it's just like the weather. That you want to be the thermometer, the barometer, and the windmill. You want to be that which watches the weather, because miraculously you can actually watch yourself and you're like, oh, so I am not feeling, image, and talk. I can actually watch feeling, image, and talk happen. What am I? It doesn't really matter what you are. But the point is this: this is like the weather, this is like the water, okay? Feeling is going to rise, image is going to counter, talk is going to happen, all these things are going to happen. But you want to be able to be balanced in there. We're still just describing, painting the landscape of this word equanimity. As we paint the landscape, we get intuitions as to why this is useful. We also begin to understand, because we are no strangers to the word meditation, why meditation is applicable in this particular domain. We will at the end mention some more meditative practices. But this is not a guided meditation, and this is not about meditation practices, actually, right? It is the answer to the question why you should meditate, part two, equanimity. Okay. And we explore in a way that looks at the concept from many, 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 many different facets. And as we explore, we gain intuition. And as we see the intuition gives us the idea of the utility of the particular word here being equanimity. And we can see how it is related to the concept of meditation. Okay. So, shout out to Mission Man in action. Mission Man. No, Mr. Man, sorry. I saw action. I saw an M in the beginning. Mission Impossible. Missing in action. Eh. So, there is another thing underneath this balance aspect here, which we are floating around the idea of floating, because it's a great visual. It's a great analogy. We all get that there's so many things in life that in order to do them well, you actually need, as a matter of fact, everything in life. There is nothing in life that you do well when you're not relaxed. The peak of game, the peak of aesthetics, the peak of being cool, let's say, and the peak of being a very good sniper, the peak of being an expert free thrower with all net, all net, all net is like floating. Okay, so let's talk about the fact that when you have equanimity, you're also way more efficient. We can stick with the water. You do not expend superfluous energy. Any kind of energy that you're expending that is extra is counterproductive to the art of floating, let's say, to the art of equanimity. Okay? Equanimity, floating, being one, being in harmony with, in this case, your internal feelings, the images in your head, and the talk in your head requires you not to grasp onto anything, not to cling onto anything, not to exert any extra energy, which then causes a vicious circle of a panic attack, or you went crazy, you went buck wild, or you started screaming at him or her, or you started freaking out and you got anxious, so on and so forth, because you were expending extra energy rather than being efficient and floating, rather than being the watcher, rather than being relaxed. We're beginning to see how it is very important, therefore, to exercise this particular capacity of equanimity and relaxation. Because A, as we said, it is the flip side of concentration. Concentration is super important and ubiquitous in terms of its utility. We go back and we watch the other video, and then we come down here and we're talking about balance now. And we talk about floating. And we're talking about how floating is analogous to being in harmony and operating in unison with both the internal and the external environment. So, the internal environment and the external environment will be just like the water. Someone is screaming at you, or maybe you're screaming at yourself in your head. Okay? In that case, we have image and talk acting up. Then you have feelings in the body. There's a tightness in your chest. There's a clenching of the jaw. There's a shortness of breath. Okay? If you remember floating, you know you don't go fighting the water. You don't go fighting the clenching in your jaw with more clenching. You don't go fighting the talk in your head by acting out or trying to block it or whatever, whatever, whatever. Neither do you have to respond to the external stimuli in any way other than the most efficient way. You need to be able to float with it. Because we all adults here, we all have, at certain times, anyways, the opportunity to exercise this particular capacity called equanimity. We all have the capacity to do that. So that's why we have built the intuition to understand what I'm saying. That's why I don't have to kind of tell you exactly why it is better to float with the storm of feeling, image, and talk than for you to fight it. We all know that when you fight, when you cling or resist, you always lose. You're trying to cling on to something. You're trying to resist something. Oh my God, here comes the thought. Here comes the feeling. I don't want the feeling. It's like, no. The feeling is like the weather, ladies and gentlemen. It will do what it does. You could just simply watch it. The heart rate will rise and it will drop. If we use anger, okay, your heart rate will rise, the back of your ear will get hot. There will be words in your head about how you were just insulted. It'll be chattering away like a monkey. But you could just sit there, grab your popcorn, okay, and watch the show. Like, oh, okay, it's talking. Oh, here goes the heart. The heart's going crazy. If you fight it, you will drown. Because we're adults again, we all know this, okay? But we can only get glimpses of this. We don't have full mastery of it because we do not exercise it. We do not actively, formally take in particular modes and so on and so forth. And this active, formal, and modal way of doing things will be meditation in this particular case. Okay. You want to develop a particular capacity, you need to exercise it. It's a use it or lose it kind of world when it comes to the world of organisms. You don't use your muscles, they will atrophy. You don't use equanimity and concentration, it will atrophy. How do you get to use them? Okay. Not all of us are, golf players at the highest level who also do sniping at night and are professional taekwondo fighters. Yes, those people are exercising a whole lot of concentration, equanimity, sensory clarity. Okay, they can be in flow state in and out, and then they can apply this to different areas in their life. And then after they leave the Navy SEAL, that they can again go and train CEOs on how to do this. But for everyone else, we need a formal practice, and this practice is called meditation. Capiche? That's all we're trying to say here. We're going to have a whole 4-part series trying to drill down on this idea that you actually do need meditation, like the breathing or the feeding or food, clothing, and shelter, and all these other things that we find to be basic needs. Meditation, the developing of these capacities, sensory clarity, equanimity, concentration, and the last part, which I'll call the space for freedom, which would be the most abstract part, it would be the last part of this series. We need these things. We need them. We need them. We need them. Oh boy, it says true. And Rocky N says people that meditate tend to not be affected as much by external factors influencing their life. Some people are governed by external factors. It's raining, so I'm sad. Oh, it's sunny, so I'm happy. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Thank you for breaking it down to very, very rudimentary and simple to understand levels. Okay. But guess what? External factors are one aspect. The internal factors are the ones that'll get even the very well trained. Okay. You may be able to ignore the rain and ignore the people cutting you off on your freeway and so on and so forth. And you're floating and you're at one, you're operating in unison with the external factors. But when certain internal things get triggered, and the key word there is trigger, because we have things that are recorded. You have memories that are recorded, especially when they go through the emotional path. Emotions are the ways emotions form stronger memories. That's why music and certain smells and things like that tend to cajole you into thinking about certain times. Okay. When those things get triggered and you see that particular thing that makes you remember that particular time, and then all of a sudden the tape starts rolling in your head and all the stress responses start happening, then what do you do? Do you know how to float in that situation? Do you know how to be the observer? Do you know how to create the space for freedom? Do you know how to have an equanimity in that situation? We're talking about why it is desirable, why you want to have equanimity in that situation. We already know why we don't want to be affected by the weather. We already know why we don't want to be going on emotional roller coasters. Feeling, image, and talk are like the weather. They will do what they do. There will be storms and hurricanes and winds. It's going to happen. It should happen. It's what it does. It's why it's there. It's a physical system, like any other system. It'll do what it does. But what are you going to do about it? Are you going to be able to be in balance and flow, be in harmony, be efficient without clinging and resisting? Okay? That is Shozan, man. Shozan in the house. Shout out, shout out, shout out. It says, damn, I'm late. No YouTube notifications. Yeah, 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 yeah. YouTube. YouTube is weird like that. So, there is a natural order that is induced, okay? A natural order. let's just put it here. You're in the water. There is a natural way in which you should interact with the water for the floating to occur. There is, and by natural, I'm using natural here in the sense that it is that which occurs of itself, that which occurs naturally, that which is of itself so. You don't have to do anything about it. There is only one way to float in that water. The water is doing its thing and you're doing your thing. There's only one arrangement, one mode, one formation. There is a natural order, okay? Not an artificial order, but a natural order. Either way, there is order, okay? So, under this balance thing with the flotation as our focus, we have been able to see, okay, elucidate more and more into this simple idea of equanimity, which I could have just said, oh, it's relaxation. We want to be relaxed. But there's always a whole lot more that goes into capacity such as this than meets the eye when it comes to mastery of subjective consciousness, which is about mastering feeling, image, and talk, which is all that we are, all that we ever are, all that we ever will be, all that we will ever experience. Now, the near-death people, when they come back, they do talk about kind of having some kind of extra experience that is realer than feeling, image, and talk. But we'll get there when we get there, okay? I'll see you on the other side and we'll talk about, wow, it's not just feeling, image, and talk anymore. There's like seven other dimensions of experience. But while we're here on Earth and while we're human beings, all we got is feeling in the body, which is emotions and perceptions, and then image in the head and talk in the head. That is the operating system. When you open your eyes in the morning, when you boot up the computer, that's the interface. That's your user interface. That's how you get information, and that's how you get inspiration, if you will. That's how you're driven. Your drives go through feeling, image, talk. All right. So there is an order to this. Let's talk about another thing. Let's say number three. Okay. Let's say number three. What is number three? Young Swift in the house. Young Swift in the house. Showing up fashionably late. Number three is something that we can all identify with. And I'm just going to say fear and anxiety. Fear and anxiety. Okay? Fear and anxiety. This is something we do not like. We do not want to experience. But guess what? We can use equanimity to desensitize ourselves, to become one with, if you will, or shall I say, to sensitize ourselves to become used to the fear response. Because fear is a response that goes on in feeling, image, and talk. Okay? And it could be the fear of novelty, for example. We're usually afraid of things that are new. Correct? So you can practice becoming used to via meditation. Okay? Now we're approaching the actual exercise of meditation. As I said, this is not a series about discussing meditative techniques and so on and so forth, even though, we can ask and talk about those. Last video, part one, we talked about the breathing exercises as a conduit through which you can begin to develop the concentration and equanimity and so on and so forth. But if you become very familiar via meditative practices with feeling, image, and talk, you're going to see, okay, fear is arising because of a novel situation. Rather than freak out about it, you're just going to be like, okay, cool. When the clouds gather and it's the right time of year, it tends to rain. So when I'm in a new situation, a little bit unfamiliar or so on and so forth, the fear response begins to happen. It begins to rain a little bit of fear. Do I need to Do anything about it? No, not really. I can be the observer. The observer, the creating of the observer is the last part of this on the series, which would be part 4, which is that creating of space for freedom, which I've alluded to a couple of times. Familiarizing yourself with the feeling, image, and talk complex will show you that no matter what it is, in all its different formations and manifestations, you can have this thing here called the observer, okay? Just draw the little observer person, all right? You can be the observer and you can stand and you can just watch. You can watch feeling, image, and talk happen, okay? You can be separated from it. So, anxiety, again, maybe a tightness in the stomach, okay? It's a feeling in the body, right? With your ability to float with it and be one with it and to create a natural order, not to try to resist the tightness of the stomach. Look, life is not magic. The universe is quite intuitive, okay? We evolved here to kind of understand it very, very, very well. So the tightness in your stomach is not magic. It's tightness in your stomach. I don't know if this is making sense. In other words, and let me get a one in the chat if you understand what I mean when I say this. Let's say we take anxiety because we used fear before, but now we used anger before. But now we're talking about fear and anxiety. And we're breaking it down into its constituent parts. When I say it's not magic, do you know what I mean? Do you know what I'm getting at? Do you know what I'm trying to dispel? Such that, in other words, it's just tightness in your stomach. Okay? It's not magic. It's not lightning bolt from the gods. It's tightness in your stomach. You don't have to fight it or cling to it or run away from it or freak out about it. Okay, the stomach is tight. Okay, the heart rate is going up. Oh, this must be a new situation. It's novel. Okay, it's new. I have a little bit of anxiety and a little bit of fear. Oh, what else is going on? Let me check the image and talk realm. Oh, there's some kind of distraction going on there. There's tapes playing. Okay, good. Where's the popcorn? It's a good show. No clinging, no resisting. Being in unison with the internal and external environment, which with whatever weather pattern is manifesting itself as it would and as it should in this universe of ours. We are very, very unskilled with dealing with the weather patterns in feeling, image, and talk. We can be very skilled and be very okay with, oh yeah, I don't have road rage. I can deal with other people acting this, that, or the other. But what happens when the weather starts acting up internally? Then what do you do? The ability to create this observer character, okay, that gives you a space for freedom, a space for observation, a space of separation, whereby you can watch yourself happen rather than quote unquote be the happening. You can actually go back to, I'm just consciousness, I'm just an observer, and I'm just watching stomach getting tight. Can I do something about stomach getting tight? You can actually do something about stomach getting tight, which is kind of loosen it up a little bit. Breathe from your diaphragm. Loosen up your neck. Make sure you're not clenching your fist. Make sure you're not clenching your jaw. Heart rate going up. Take deeper breaths. Okay? Do I have to fight this, resist this, run away from it? Scream? No. How do we develop this capacity? We develop this capacity through meditation. There is no reason why anybody should not be meditating. Again, someone mentioned earlier athletes, soldiers, when we see excellence, warriors, top golfers, Mike Tyson, Kobe Bryant, when we see everybody that is at the peak of their game telling us the same thing in different forms, come on now. And granted, I don't like the woo peddlers, okay? So to hell with Deepak Chopra and all his books. Can gather all his books and go burn them in hell, okay? And all the other crystal carrying, chakra talking BSers out there, okay? I don't care for them at all. So let's stop that from being an excuse why you should not do what's practical. So, oh no, I don't deal with that BS because that BS is for, those BS people, and Deepak Chopra doesn't know what he's talking about. And yes, he doesn't know what he's talking about. I know, but doesn't mean you should be a freaking idiot either, right? It's excuse making. So I'm going to step off my soapbox again and we'll continue the lecture. All right. So we talk about fear and anxiety. What's up? So providers. Yeah. I got some smoke for some. I got some smoke for some people, for some woo peddlers. I have smoke for crystal carrying hippie chicks who also read tarot cards and tell you about your chakras and this and that and the other. Okay. With chaotic and ridiculous lives. In other words, they just talk. They talk. They talk. They're not really into the discipline. They're not really in, they don't know what the hell they're talking about either. They could not break down feeling, image, and talk, equanimity, sensory clarity, concentration, how they interact with each other, how you develop these particular capacities, how it leads to the development of this particular character who gives you the space for freedom as the observer. No! They'll tell you about all kinds of nonsense all day. And a lot of you niggas out there simping for them. I know you. I know. But let's not go there. Let's not go there. Let's not go there. A lot of you love those hippie chicks, don't you? All right. So, a quick recap before we move on. Part two on the series about why you should meditate. It develops certain capacities. Part one was about the capacity to concentrate. Part two is about equanimity. The first thing we mentioned about equanimity is that it is the flip side of concentration. In other words, if I told you, concentrate, concentrate, you loosen up, you breathe, you remove all superfluous activity, you bring to the foreground that which needs to be concentrated upon, and you relax everything else, like a camera. It relaxes and it softens the image in the background, right? And it focuses, it sharpens the foreground. In other words, focus and relaxation go hand in hand. You can start with focus and then you get relaxed. You can start with a relaxation and then you can choose to focus. But relaxation is the background. Okay, it is the petri dish in which concentration consists, in which concentration exists. You want to concentrate, you need to soften the background. You need to soften the superfluous and focus on, separate, disambiguate that which needs to be concentrated upon. Right? So that's the first thing we mentioned about that. And then we went into the swimming analogy, the floating analogy, the being one, operating in unison and in a natural order with the internal and the external environment, using the external environment or the environment that is as the water. And then we segued into the feeling, image, and talk. The feeling, image, and talk, which is your subjective consciousness, is the part that we just, especially in the West, we're all Westerners out here, brought up in the West, and we are not taught how to deal with our subjective consciousness. We're not taught how to deal with feeling, image, and talk. How do we swim in that water? How do we swim in that milieu? How do we not cling and resist and push back and cause all this stuff. Okay, how do we actually do that? We do it through meditation, ladies and gentlemen. We do it through meditation. And then we talked about fear and anxiety as just something to focus our minds, understanding that the fear response is a response to novel situations. We're not going to use the acute kind of terror, okay? The dragon busts through your window at night or that kind of situation. Okay. We're just talking about anxiety, which is a response usually to novel situations. Novel situations that maybe you're expected to perform or around new people or something like that. Something is new. If you are a master by having acquainted yourself with all the different manifestations and formations of feeling, image, and talk, all the different weather patterns which your subjective consciousness takes, then you're not going to be all freaked out by the fact that your stomach tightens because you're going to know that it's just like a cloud passing by. Oh, goes the heart rate going up. You don't freak out when you see a cloud, do you? You don't freak out when you see a waterfall. You don't freak out when you see a stream doing what it does. Why are you freaking out at your heart rate? Why are you freaking out at the tightening of your stomach? Why are you freaking out at the heat developing in the back of your neck and your ear? Why are you freaking out at the silly tapes that are running by when you get triggered? No, it's just like a weather pattern. But all these I'm saying right now are just words. You will never be able to do it until you actually practice. I cannot tell you how to bench press. Pick your weight, okay? Whatever weight is, that you feel like, oh my God, that's a lot. We can talk about it all day and why it's useful and why you want to do that and your back and your this and the forms you should take and how you should do it and what you should eat and how you should be hydrated and so on and so forth. But meditation is very, very, very akin to exercise. It is an exercise within the realm of feeling, image, and talk, though, an exercise within the subjective consciousness that and your training capacity such as concentration, equanimity, and sensory clarity. Okay, so until you actually do the practice, it doesn't work. But I wanted to create a 4-part series, okay, for posterity, for all of eternity, here on YouTube, just drilling down why you should and taking away all the excuses, all your excuses why you're not doing it. You will not be able to compete at the highest levels, ladies and gentlemen. Trust me, if you don't have your subjective consciousness game right. And if you got it right, you got a secret weapon that people never see coming. They never see it coming. So, number four. Number four is a very simple, intuitive, straightforward one. And I've been messing around with the lighting here to kind of make sure that this contrast works before I get my writing tablet, because I'm going to get a writing tablet, or maybe I'll get one of those electronic whiteboards where I can kind of write here and erase, or maybe I'll get a writing tablet that I can share on the screen. But while we're doing our low tech stuff here, I think today has been my best contrast. So, health is number four. And I think that it is straight up, okay? Straight up in terms of understanding. Everything that we've talked about so far shows us how not having equanimity can lead to increased stress, an early grave. Many people die. No, most people die of chronic stress, heart disease, cancer. I don't know, call it whatever you want to call it. It's all just manifestations of chronic stress because you were clinging and you were resisting and you were clenching your teeth and grinding your teeth at night and freaking out about stuff and participating in the weather that has no reason for you to participate in, being very inefficient with your actions. A constant, and we all know what chronic means. Chronic is not a spike. Chronic is this constant mid-level phenomenon, and it's horrible for you. Spikes are fine. Oh shit! What happened? That's fine, right? Oh, I thought I saw, I thought I saw Sub-Zero try to attack me or something. Try to use his deep freeze move on me or whatever. That's fine. A little spike here and there is actually a good thing because we know that systems, complex systems, actually need some disorder. Okay, evolution, your muscles, your immune system, your psyche, it all needs disorder. And you can watch some other video where I elucidated that particular concept in depth. I forget the video now, but we talked about, yeah, it was the video on streams of income. Streams of income where we created a dichotomy to the dichotomy between versatility and efficiency, and we show how they are related to fragility. And we introduced a concept called anti-fragile, whereby we said complex systems such as your muscles, the ecosystem, the economy, your psyche, your immune system actually thrive in disorder and die in order. They atrophy when there is no randomness, no chaos. Okay, so spikes, that's what that whole tangent was about. Spikes are fine, spikes are wanted. Chronic is horrible. You just chronically having a tight neck, gripping your steering wheels, driving to work, not knowing how to float kills you. I'm not saying something theoretical here. If you're watching this stream, you're probably above average intelligence. So you know what I'm talking about when I say chronic stress is killing everybody. Okay? And it's probably not a good idea to say, oh, well, people, if you're watching this stream, you're above average intelligence, because we may have some dummies come in here and be like, oh, this is not for me then. Well, then go away, please. So, health, very, very, very important. Okay? Shout out. Let me see if there's what you guys are talking about. Okay. I get stress spikes when I watch The Ring. The Ring. Is there a series now, or was it that one movie, The Ring? And how many times are you watching The Ring? Maybe you need to stop watching The Ring. Or is that kind of a little exercise thing that you do? L Boyd says, LOL, we're smart. Shout out to Soul Provider laughing probably at the Sub-Zero thing. We all know he's smart. Yeah, he's a double N. So we don't want this to be too long. I always say that. I always say we don't want these things to be too long. But before we close it out by talking about the last item and then and then doing a recap, if anybody has anything to say, anything to ask, I'm the currently spamming the chat with the link. Nicer wants to know what double N is. Uh, Tell her so. She's got one word, one part right. I think she just got the other part now that I mentioned. The other part is the N word. the the N word. Number 5, ladies and gentlemen. Number 5 is the icing on the cake. Number 5 is the icing on the cake. Figuratively and also quite literally, in the sense that number 5 is aesthetics, my friend. Aesthetics. Equilibrium is beautiful. Let's start from the very abstract, and then we'll bring it into human activities and things that are more visceral and can be intuitively understood. But equilibrium is very beautiful, especially unstable equilibriums. So you've all seen the rocks. Look, a pile of rocks is just a pile of rocks. But it is very engaging when you see those piles of rocks that look like they should not be, right? And I believe the thumbnail for this video had one of those. I'm not going to go through trying to find it right now. Shout out to EE in the house. Let me get a one in the chat if you guys understand what I mean when I say equilibrium is very aesthetically pleasing, even from a very abstract level. Okay? Abstract meaning general, that we can think about different levels of equilibrium, whether it be a ballet dancer or a nice structure that demonstrates how it's being held up by the fact that you see maybe there's this thing over here and it holds up this other thing over here, and then there's some whatever and some nice architectural thing and it's holding up this big ball, and wow, that's beautiful. Okay, now we all know about those rock formations. I was going to try to find a video, but maybe I can draw one of those where we see people pile up rocks in ways that look kind of improbable. So there is something about unstable equilibrium. For the physics nerds out there, we know that there are two different kinds of equilibrium, okay? And since I can't help myself, I just have to explain what I mean by unstable equilibrium by giving some kind of visual, okay? So if this is some kind of mountain, okay, and you have a ball, okay, over here, this is stable equilibrium. It takes a lot of energy to knock it out of equilibrium, okay, to go up or down, right? But you can balance that ball, okay, right there on the razor's edge and keep it balanced. Up, leave it there. That's unstable equilibrium. If you knock it to either side, it'll fall off, okay? So two different kind of this is a high energy one, as you can kind of think of, you know, potential energy. If you're thinking about something in the gravitational potential, blah, 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 right? So unstable equilibrium has an aesthetic appeal to it just in and of itself. I don't know why, but you guys, given the ones in the chat, have the same intuition. There is something just aesthetically pleasing about equanimity, especially when manifested in the form of unstable equilibrium. A tightrope walker, for example, that's exciting. It shows prowess. It is beautiful. A ballet dancer, ice skater, balancing on one leg, doing all these kinds of twists and turns and all that kind of stuff is beautiful. All these things require equanimity. Okay. All these things require equanimity. Hence, I said we're going to mention the abstract, right? We mentioned it in the abstract. And a little gift for you guys today, which is the gift of the abstract gift to you is unstable equilibrium is aesthetically pleasing. So maybe when you're in the LA Museum of Modern Art and you're next to one of these hippie chicks and you're trying to spit game and she says something and you can turn to her and say, yes, the unstable equilibrium is quite aesthetically pleasing. So We're going to move that into something that is a little bit more in the realm of human activity, as should I say, your day-to-day activity. What is cool? Cool is everything that we've been talking about, okay? And again, this is number 5. It's aesthetics. It's the icing on the cake, okay? It is the icing on the cake, quite literally, because it's aesthetic, and also figuratively, because the cake in and of itself is the ability to be in unison and not cling and not resist and so on and so forth with the internal environment, which is feeling, image, and talk, and also the external environment, which affects the internal environment, right? So the actual work, the actual capacity is the cake, the equanimity. The icing on the cake, the manifestation is cool. And everybody likes cool. People want to be around cool. People are going to find you pleasing to be around. People are going to think that you got your shit in order because you do. Not because you're faking it, not because you're out there watching YouTube videos and some silly dating coach is telling you nonsense about how to be cool because you're a freaking idiot. Because you know that mastery of subjective consciousness is the be all end all. And you're actually trying to get shit done and leave a dent in this universe. And therefore, you're going to practice, 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 practice. And then when you come out, people will be like, wow, he's so cool. That's just an accessory. That's the afterburn. That doesn't even freaking matter. But I'm going to mention it as an icing on the cake because I know that aesthetic things are very important. I am not an anti-aesthetic kind of person. You may already know that. I made a whole video about it. Plus, I'm always here with my tie clips and my matching colors and shit. And I'm into music and the arts and so on and so forth. The aesthetics are a outward manifestation of human prowess. Aesthetics, real aesthetics, okay, and real recognize real, okay. Fake people can be fooled by fakes, but who gives a damn about fake people, okay? But the real recognize real, and aesthetics is an outward manifestation of human prowess. And everything that we've mentioned as to why you should meditate, and we develop this cake, and now we're saying that cool is literally relaxed. Cool is literally equanimous. Cool is literally efficient and in unison with the internal and external environment. And that it is, in and of itself, very, very attractive, aesthetically pleasing, and calming to everyone around. You want to influence people? You want to persuade people? You want to close the deal? You want to get her number? What are you trying to do? You will find that the development of these capacities will have as a byproduct all the aesthetic frills that you want. But by the time you get there, you're already going to know that that's not the main thing, thankfully, so that you can keep ahead on the main path of mastery of subjective consciousness. And everything else flows from that. And if you're a greedy capitalist like me, then the first thing is get that freaking money, right? Get that freaking money flows from that. I want to be efficient 16 hours a day. I want to close that deal. I want to kick your ass in business. I want to get as much money as I want. That's why you guys need to hit up the Cash App. So that's one thing. But there are many other aspects that come from it. Many other aspects that come from it. And the icing on the cake is the aesthetic appeal. So, ladies and gentlemen, I think we've done very well on time today. We have done very well on time, but we are going to. Hello, can you hear me?
Hey, how you doing, man? I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yes, 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 yes. Thank you for joining. What do you have for us today?
Absolutely. Thank you very much for the fire live stream. I have one kind of quick question. I'm gonna try not to sound judgmental and not against you, but just against these against this mentality I'm questioning here. It seems like there seems to be two types of men. There's men, once again, not trying to sound judgmental. There's men like us, which are more about thought, process. We have a tendency to want to do things the right way, like do right by the women in our life, by our the men, family, business partners. Um, we tend to focus more on form and how things are done. And I don't want to sound judgmental on men that think otherwise, but there are also men that are way more chaotic. You know what I mean? They're all about just yelling, fighting, chaos, stuff like that. And here's my thing. When I study all these rules of success, not just from you, but from other people, things like meditation, things like keeping your cool, things like making other people calm, this seems like the right way for a man to be. But then how do we explain the random success you'll see? And I don't want to judge men like this. One of my best friends was like that. And one of the reasons we're no longer friends is I learned how far he goes with it. But I've known a guy who he always argues with his girlfriend. He only gets in the fights. He only argues. Him and his girlfriend, he's all tight neck. Like physically, we talk about the mind and body connected. Literally, his girlfriend went to give him a neck massage, and he says he doesn't like that. And we both kind of laughed at him. We said, "What do you mean?" He says, "I like feeling tense." He actually has been tense so much he begins to like it. But we'll see even other men like will tend to watch the Joker a little more than we'll watch Batman, though. You know what I'm saying? So I guess what I'm saying with this little rant is how do we explain the success of those men who are only chaotic, anger, shoot, kill type of men, you know?
You see, success has many different parameters. You may already be seeing where I'm going with this, right? So you could have a particular parameter. Let's say it's money in the bank. And then you have set of circumstances that allow you to accumulate money in the bank. By circumstances, I mean the rules of the game. Maybe you're living in a communist society whereby you all you need to do is be the most cutthroat, tattletale, rat everybody out and rise to the top kind of person. Or you could just be a scam artist, or you could be a cap in a capitalist society where in a particular arrangement you can find a particular glitch in the matrix. Let's just say pop music, okay? And by capitalism and democracy allows also for a particular way of gaming the system in the popular way. In other words, if you can get numbers, you can get money, right? And popularity, the average, the mean, is usually mediocre, right? So you make mediocre music, you make mediocre clothes, you make mediocre whatever, and you sell it to the masses, and then you get rich. So basically, what I'm saying is, if you pick this one particular parameter, okay, money in the bank, right? There's so many ways that any kind of random person, not complete, if you will, from your perspective, right? Not a whole person from your perspective, can get to the top of the pyramid in that particular parameter. Does that make sense?
It does. Because you'll see certain type of because I mean, once again, not for nothing, but like and not to make it, all about the whole women thing, but like as guys will be like, yeah, like, um, you know, um, not to be whatever on YouTube, but like, for instance, if we argue with a woman, for us type of men, it stays in just words. I'll put it like that. But I've
Mm,
seen men who want to take it, let's just say, beyond words, and women will tend to respect that more than our type of men who will be calm and explain and actually solve the issue. I'm trying to mention it in a way that's, you know what I mean. But
mhm.
you know what I'm saying? I'm like, how do these guys? I want to sound judgmental, but how do these guys and get such a claim? And they'll be called the real black men. Like, how is it make you a real black men to just respond to everything with brawly level rage? Like, you know what I'm saying? Like,
Hmm. So let me say this. With a little bit of humor, I'll say, well, for number one, never argue with a woman. And but that's only a little bit of humor. It is true, though. I will say that never argue with a woman.
okay,
It's not. It's just, especially when we're talking at this particular level. If you hear, some people may hear what I just said, and then they add three steps to it, and then they say, "Oh, he must be some kind of misogynist." Well, that's on them, right? Not arguing with someone is because of you understand your nature and you understand their nature and you understand that there's a different thing going on, and it's not usually solved with what we usually call argumentation, right? So
absolutely.
if you if you consider, okay, well, why are these people, um look, in universal culture, right, there are certain things, whether you are from Athens or from Jerusalem or from the Congo, okay, when we talk about peak excellence, there are certain things that are ubiquitously respected, okay, and it is not just capacity in one parameter, okay. We're talking about that strong silent type, the cool guy. He's got equanimity, he's got capacity, he can bring this and that to bear at the right time, right? But these people are never the plurality or the majority, right?
That's true. That's true.
Okay, so they're never that. And if, as a woman, let's say, which I am not, but if as a woman I'm trying to get something, okay, and I'm not talking about, because a lot of these things are unconscious, okay, I'm trying to get some kind of capacity, I'm trying to peel off the top of the pyramid, which women tend to do. Okay, who's on the top of the pyramid? Okay, there are these parameters out there, and oh, that one, he's on top of that pyramid. Let's go get him. Okay, first of all, the guys on the very, 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 very top, the ones who we described, who have all these things together, okay, they're going to be gone in like 2 seconds. Okay, okay, so it's going to be slim pickings. So now you're going to have approximations of that. So you're just going to try to find aggressive people, let's say, right?
Oh,
Okay, so because it looks like, let's say, the warrior ethos, it looks like the kind of thing that the Marines would say, yes, that's the top guy. But we know, right, that it's not just about aggression. That's, Sergeant Slaughter with his eye patch that's respected by the whole freaking whatever, or to use someone who's contemporary, Mad Dog Mattis, for example. It's not just, oh, he's aggressive. That's not what it's about, right? But Mad Dog Mattis and the rest of his cohort are going to be gone out of the marketplace. We're sticking with the women now, very quickly. And if you're not going to settle, or if you're not thinking, or if you're not rational, or if you're just being emotional about things, you're going to just find any other aggressive ape out there to be your approximation of Mad Dog Mattis.
I see. It's the closest kind of bestest they can get at the moment.
Yes, when
Yeah,
you're still
from their
trying, yeah,
perspective.
from their perspective, without looking at things from a holistic
Mhm.
way. The second thing I wanted to mention is this, and this is something that is a capacity, and I mentioned it in the last stream, which has to do with the dark side. That the dark side is very, very useful. And it goes to the first thing that I said about don't argue with women. Okay. Because the way to handle it is something similar to argument. It's on the dark side realm, but it involves mastery. Arguing and that kind of stuff, that's not mastery. Okay. So, what do I mean by that? And I'm not going to go deep into that arguing and whatever, but what I mean by that is, since you mentioned people who use anger and they're aggressive and this and that and the other, what I'm saying is this: those tools are very useful. A big part of Mad Dog Mattis being respected is because of that aggression and that thing and so on and so forth. And he will go there and rip off their heads and shit down their necks, right? That part, the dark side, is very important. But in order to be able to utilize the dark side, you need to be able to develop the capacity to be the observer and the user of the dark side, as opposed to being controlled by it. In other words, there are two responses people have. They either dive directly into feeling image talk, into the chaos of the weather, vis-a-vis your friend, for example. I like my neck being tight. I'm just gonna go in there and ride that bull, right?
Absolutely. Yep.
The other response people have, both of them are wrong, is to be afraid of it, to be afraid of their anger, be afraid of their lust, be afraid of their ego, be afraid of their competition. All these things that people tend to look at, even let's just say the seven deadly sins, even some of the seven deadly sins. Not all of them are worth utilizing, let's say. Okay, but these things that we will put in the category of sin, of missing the mark. Missing the mark, by the way, is an arrangement thing. It's not that anything is particularly bad. It's more of a context. It's more of an arrangement. It's all of a way. Okay, so what am I saying? I'm saying that the third way, the right way, is to be able to pick up anger, lust, whatever it is, and wield it like a master, right? Not to just dive into it and be a freaking idiot, or not to be afraid of it either, but to be the master that controls the weather, the feeling, the image, the talk, the whole freaking thing that's going on, internally and externally. That is where it's at. And it requires, okay, because I think that that is something that is often ignored in this side of the fence, right? Let's say our side of the fence. Something that's often ignored is that you need to be an embracer of the dark side.
Okay. Because I'll say this, I'm adept at using the dark side when building myself, right? When building myself. Like if I'm in the gym, I can think about anything that's made me mad in the past, and I'm in the gym for hours. I'm going in, I've done martial arts. There's nothing better than the dark side when you need to push harder. But it's just when dealing with other people, I tend to take a more, because someone's got to, right? Take a more calm, let's see how to solve this type of realm. But I noticed that people only respect me when I'm in Hulk mode. And then I see guys that always live in Hulk mode and see how they're successful. And I'm like, well, wait a minute. Like, you know, I've seen the more yin side, I guess you can call it,
Mm,
like through meditation, Tai Chi. I've seen that build my life, like lower my anxiety, um, be more focused in how you work, not just working hard, but working smart. Like I see
mhm.
the legitimacy of the yin side. It's just that the yang side seems to get so much more of an automatic power boost. Like as a man, if you can explain your point, you get like 50 points. But if you can just tell someone to shut up, you get like 100. It's like, wow.
Yeah,
You know what I'm saying?
anger is powerful. Anger gets things done. Anger has a lot of energy. Anger can be used, just like, with Star Wars, the path to the dark side is shorter, it's quicker. It requires a lot of anger to get there, right? You have so on and so forth. Okay. Now that's life. There's weather patterns and there's many formations, and it is not a simple thing, in other words. Okay. It is not simple. Hence, people have written many books and argued many different ways for 2,500 years in all written recorded history about how to be, from Plato to Machiavelli, the prince, right? Machiavelli representing one aspect, let's say, which you understand, right? And then other people representing other aspects. But the thing is this, the ability to wield, and I'm sure that you've experienced this, okay, that you have at the right time been able to, in a way that displayed equanimity and balance, pick up anger, use it to dismiss whatever needed to be dismissed, and then you put it back down.
Absolutely. That actually feels the best sometimes, yes.
Yes. Okay. And that's what you get when you are able to practice it. And okay, because you're talking from the perspective of a man and you're talking about things like anger and so on and so forth, and also, how to communicate with a woman. So that's why we're kind of keeping it in here, okay, in this particular space. So I would say that embracing of the dark side, whether you be male or female, is very important. But being men, we understand what our dark sides are, okay? And you need to be able to embrace it. Don't do the thing where you dive into it That is the worst, in my opinion. The people who are afraid of it, I have some more sympathy for. Okay, those idiots out there that are just in their feelings and in their head, they're useless to real productive human beings. Okay, and that brings me back even to the people that you said, for example, whom you may see, okay, that are successful. Okay. What I would tell you is that they're not as successful as they could have been if they were not only maximizing in one parameter, right? And we're not just lucky or something. Those people usually end up screwing themselves. Karma is your action, right? Karma is your formation. Karma is your mode. It's not like some kind of a you put it out into the universe, action reaction thing. It's just that the shape that you take in this world is going to determine your destiny. And if you don't have a shape that has balance and equanimity and so on and so forth, some storm is going to come there and it's going to knock you off. It's not, oh, it's because of what he did in 1982. That's why OJ ended up in prison. It's like, no, he just took a certain shape, right? Speaking of OJ, and that shape will not last. That's just how it is. Okay. So going in there and being mastered by feeling, image, and talk, okay, is the worst path. Another bad path, but a little bit more sympathetic path I'm more empathetic with, is people whom are afraid, and they tend to say down with the ego and down with lust, greed, anger, even what you may call materialism, and so on and so forth. That's just another
Mm.
route of fear. Um, those people are making another big mistake on another end of the spectrum. Okay. And that's partly why I made that video talking about aesthetics being a manifestation of human prowess. What I'm saying now undergirds that whole video as to why, yes, it is a very human and natural thing to do to dig down, okay, dig down into the earth and bring out diamonds just so that I can put it on my cufflinks. Okay, and that if you don't understand that, you're the one who's not being a human being, not me. Because what human beings do is stuff like dig down into the earth. I went through the whole video about, like, since when you were a baby, you were picking up things and trying to figure out how what they trying to be a master of them. Okay, mastery of subjective consciousness, mastery of the outer world, and play. In other words, the ultimate play is building a whole industry, building machinery, so on and so forth, so you can dig down into the earth and get this rare stone and put it on your cufflinks, or put it on a plate just so you can eat. Okay, and make very elaborate, nice dishes with it. Just because human beings are best at play, and we are distinguished by play. That's what distinguishes us from the pig. And I say, hey, otherwise, why don't you just go put on sackcloth, boil some potatoes, and eat it off the floor like a pig? As a matter of fact, don't even boil the potatoes; just eat them on, with their skin raw and everything, right? In other words,
Absolutely.
but here's the thing, though. People start going into that masses thing again and say, oh, but the masses, and it's the waste of the wealth. It doesn't matter. Even if only you and I understand the playfulness of going down into the bottom of the ocean to find some rare gem just so we can put it on a necklace, even hopefully you and I know it doesn't matter what everyone else is doing. It doesn't matter that then there are 100,000 people on Instagram trying to go down to the bottom of the ocean to get that thing for clout, okay, or whatever. You get what I'm saying? It doesn't matter. It does not
Yeah,
matter at all. You don't knock down the whole enterprise of human play because you do not understand it.
that's true. I can see you on that.
All right. Did you have anything else to add?
The last thing I want to say is shout out to you because this is what I call real life game. Not just with women. This is like the 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 real gamer schematics on how things work in life. And what really got me on that is when you talked about being calm when being in social rooms and social parties. Because I think you might have mentioned the same trick I used to do, which is going to a place early. Like for instance, my friend had a Halloween party, right? So all this, guys and girls are gonna dress up and have a couple drinks together. I went there early just by happenstance to help him set up because I knew we're all in college. I knew the people there. I went there early to set up. And since I knew the room, as each person came in, I introduced myself. By the middle of the night, everyone already knows me because I introduced myself part by part. Instead of me walking into a room and feeling anxiety because I walk into 1,000 new people, like going to a room early is like it's a key technique that only people that have been out there will notice. So I found it very interesting that you brought that up because that's something a lot of people don't bring up, but just say like, "Oh, be confident." But now there's like ways in life to actually do that. Like how you take care of your diet and your mind is going to make 90% of how you are when you leave your house anyway. You know what I'm saying? So
100%, 100%, and I'm very thankful. I am yeah, I'm speechless. Thank you very much for for the compliment. And yes, that video, because when I was making those videos or videos like that, this is before I started getting into the in depth a little bit more about the practices and so on and so forth, was to kind of just kind of put it out there as to look, you want to sell something, you want to influence somebody, you want whatever it is you want to do in the social sphere, here's what you need to do and how exactly you get that capacity. In other words, people just telling you, be yourself or blah, blah, blah. Those are not people who understand or are helpful. Okay. They don't know what's going on. People who have really gone in there and experience things and have the capacity to systematize, and not everybody has that capacity. I understand. Okay. I do have a way of being able to break things down. Okay. And I'm not bragging. I was just born that way. But when you're able to tell somebody, step one, go to the room early, look at the different things in the room, sit in different positions in the room, smell the room, touch the room, taste the room, whatever, acclimate your senses to the room, and then you will be, by definition, the most comfortable person in the room. And when you're comfortable, boom, now you got the equanimity thing going on, and you have all these benefits, including the aesthetic aspect, which might be the most important, the icing on the cake that day at that party, right?
absolutely, and like you said, that's something you can actually do because people say like, just be cool, man, or forget your anxiety exists. Like that's not some like you can physically actually like you give the type of tips you can actually like do, for instance. And I mean, there's other people as well, but like I like the type of teachers like yourself where you give the actual action you can do. Like you can take action, go there early. You can take action, for instance, a job interview. If you go to a job interview early and you're familiar with that building before you start shaking hands, like you get like a 50-point bonus. You get like extra stats in the video game terminology. So shout out to you for bringing up those things that are applicable in multiple ways. You know what I mean?
Thank
In
you. Thank you very
actuality.
much for calling out. Yeah, I saw you I noticed you in the chat last time, and I'm glad you called in to share. And I think I've heard you before also on Ramil's. I just recognized the voice on Ramil's panel or
Yeah, shout
something
out
like
to
that.
Ramil, man. Shout out to Ramil.
Yeah, that's another guy who he's out there with very actionable and very straightforward, very practical, right? It's not a lot of BS going on with Ramil. He just kind of tells it like this.
Exactly. And I
Yeah.
love his live streams too because he cuts away a lot of the crystals and the stuff. It's like, nah, like here's how as men we really build a business. It's like it's very grassroots. So
Exactly, exactly. Well, shout out again, and thanks for joining. Let me see here. Oh, 134. Yeah, we tend to not be less than. Did you have any closing words?
my only closing words is for us as men, just I mean it sounds very simple to say hang in there, but in the yin way as far as relaxing and as far as I mean once again being tough, having to go out there and work. We already got the tough part down. But there's a phrase in Tai Chi. This is the best way I could put my closing words shortly.
Hmm.
There's a phrase in Tai Chi called relax harder. Like, because we always talk about going harder, you need more veins, but no, work because relax harder is kind of a thing, but you want to develop more relaxation. You want to work more on relaxation. It's kind of weird to say the word work on relaxation, but you see what I'm getting at? My last words to
100%.
men would be cultivate that relaxation. Because at the end of the day, that's what we're still getting to. Like if we had our dream island house with our dream woolen and our dream pet or whatever, we'd be relaxed when we got there. Like the end goal result is still to have some level of relaxation. So yeah.
Thank you very much. Relax harder. That is a very very nice one. Okay. And thanks for joining. And keep watching. Stay tuned. We'll keep on doing this. We have two more parts to this particular series here. Next part will be sensory clarity, and the final part will be space for freedom. So thank you very much. How do you pronounce the name? Is it Shozan or?
I take either one, but show's on. You know what I'm saying? Either one, but yeah, show's on. You know
Show's
what I'm saying?
on. Show's on. All right, great. Well, see you next time, sir.
See you then, man. Thanks.
All right. So I saw something about guilt, something about turning the other cheek, something about being the bigger person in the chat. Okay. Bria C. I'm reading. I believe in reciprocity, but I'm still being affected by the be the bigger person teachings. My anger is not as productive due to the guilt. How do y'all get over this mindset? Guilt, just like anger, is another weather pattern phenomenon. Okay. And when the guilt comes, you need to be able to handle it so that it is not something that causes you to not do what you need to do. Now, here's what I'm saying. I'm addressing the guilt side of things first before I talk about how you pick up effectively the anger. Because guilt, like many other things, is going to happen. If you're not a psychopath, okay, if you're not a psychopath, you're going to feel guilty even when you do the right thing. So, Bria C, if you're still around, or maybe if you're watching this later, what I'm saying is this. Even when you do the right thing, when you know you should have disciplined the child, you you whatever it is you did in order to discipline that child, and you know it was appropriate, you're still going to feel guilty. Using the disciplining the child analogy as an example. But with many, many other situations, okay, you're still going to feel guilty even if you do the right thing. If you're not a psychopath. So, what do? Guilt is just another thing to observe and to have equanimity towards. In other words, don't allow the fact that there's a feeling in your body and an image in your head and a talk in your head to talk about being the better person and turning the other cheek and so on and so forth, and many, many misinterpretations of things that Jesus said, for example, because I don't really think that many things that he said are interpreted correctly. Well, it makes sense. No one really interprets most things correctly, anyways. So, not blaming anybody for that. No smoke for nobody. But the fact that there's a feeling in your body, the fact that there's an image in your head and a talk in your head about you being that we call guilt, okay? And it takes many different shapes and forms, okay? It's going to take shape and form in the feeling, image, talk trifecta. You developing the observer character that watches it is going to help you not, is going to help you suck the magic out of it, is what I'm saying. So that you know that you should discipline the child even when the next time comes around and you're going to discipline the child correctly or do whatever you needed to do or pick up your anger and use it, and then you will still then feel the weather pattern come through called guilt after that, and it's just going to be okay. So you're going to pick up the anger, you're going to use it, you're going to put it down, and then the weather pattern is going to come through and it's going to pass. And so the ultimate answer therefore is you have to develop the sensory clarity, the equanimity, and the concentration, in other words meditate, in order to be able to create this observer character that fuse this thing so that, and let me get a one in the chat, Brea, if I'm coming across, or let me get some feedback, so that you are not clinging or resisting guilt or clinging or resisting other behaviors as a result of not liking the feeling, image, and talk associated with what we call guilt. The danger, well, let's not go into okay. There is a danger in developing this thing, but the thing is, it doesn't really, as I said, if you're a psychopath, you're a psychopath already, and you don't have to worry about a lot of this stuff. Okay. But you're gonna build a certain level of intuition. Okay. I see a one. Thank you. You're gonna build a certain level of intuition that knows, okay, I was in balance and I was swimming with the wave. This crazy wave came, this wave of somebody doing something wrong. I needed to act, I needed to pick up anger, I needed to pick up something. Maybe I needed to pick up lust, whatever it is that people associate with the dark side. I needed to pick it up and I needed to wield it, and I wielded it masterfully. Okay. And because you did that because you were the observer, you were watching yourself floating in that water of anger. Okay. And then it was done, and then you left, and then there will be the fog of guilt that comes over. And then you just watch that fog the same way you would watch any other activity which you've described. Let's say the anxiety. I said, okay, some kind of a tightening of the stomach. Tightening of the stomach is not magic, it's just your freaking stomach. There's no need to imbue it with magical powers. Let it go. Raising up the heartbeat, let it go. Tapes running in your head about what your mom told you, it's just a tape running in your head about what your mom told you. The observer, the eternal observer, okay, can always take a step back and watch that. All right. All right, all right, all right, all right, all right. Yes, Rocky N said desensitizing yourself to using assertiveness is hard due to society wanting people to to be sheep and keep harmony and so on and so forth. But it is also very necessary. Okay, carry, speak softly but carry a big stick. Sheathing your sword, but knowing very well how to use that sword is also very important because a sword is useless. Okay, it's actually dangerous if you don't know how to use it properly. So I used the knife analogy in my last stream on concentration. Say people look at the dark side, okay? And they're afraid of the dark side because it's like a knife they don't know how to control. Every time they pick it up, they end up stabbing themselves and their mom, okay? So they run far away from it. But a world without knives is ridiculous, okay? You don't open a drawer and then you look at the spoon and you say that's a good tool, and you look at the knife and you say that's a bad tool. No, a knife which does violence, the purpose of which is to do violence, is a very important part, a very important utensil, just like your teeth or whatever. You don't go and say, oh, well, this is a good tool, that is a bad tool. This is, it's like, no, that's not how it works. This is kindergarten level stuff I'm talking about, right? Which is, tools are not good or bad, depending on how you use, right? So, running away from the knife, running away from your anger, running away from your competitive nature, running away from your ego, running away from the fact that you think you're a god on earth or something like that, not knowing how to pick it up and use it at the right time will leave you impoverished, and you live an impoverished life. And I don't mean impoverished in terms of material stuff. You're just not going to be living the right kind of life. You're not going to be able to use the knife, which is necessary to be used. Okay? So, but the point is, this is not just an intellectual exercise. The point is, go start meditating so that you can master your subjective consciousness, so that all these different weather patterns are going to become tools, implements that you have at your disposal. And when you want to relax and just pick up the popcorn and watch the show, you can. Okay? You can. And maybe one day I'll make a stream for dudes vis-a-vis dealing with the emotions, the images, the talk, and the whole chaos that comes along with interacting with women. Not because of the women, but because we are different and we don't really know how to do it. Okay? There is a whole thing to what I said about never arguing, because you have to understand what exactly is going on. And it is rarely ever about words or patterns of words, right versus wrong or logic. It is usually not about that. It is usually all about mastering yourself. A lot of times when it comes to why men fall flat on their face when dealing with a woman on the other side. We men amongst ourselves know how to do it because we all have a line which we never cross. Because men don't argue with each other, and that's why we're not skilled at arguing. Men know that there is a very small barrier between you and me, and that once we cross that, it's now violence. We already know where it's going. There is no need to exchange words back and forth. There is no scene with two grown, actual red blooded men going back and forth with each other, arguing. That's not how the world of men works. It immediately starts at here. It's either 0 or 1 with men. It's 0 or we're fighting. It's simple, in other words. Hence, we don't understand all the various gradations of social interaction that involve a lot of back and forth and dancing and arguing and this and that. And it does, and my thing is, don't go into that world. It is not your place. You don't know how to do it. There's something else you should be doing. And that's going to be another stream. So, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much. Shout out to SOBC, SOBC in the house. Shout out to L Boyd, as usual, always holding it down. She says, true, Ike, you have to weigh the actions and consequences as well. SOBC says, absolutely 100%. Any home without a father is a danger zone. Yes, 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 yes. We kind of know that. Yes, 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 yes. And you cannot emphasize enough that the way men interact with each other is very different. We don't have all these gradations and gray areas. It's either 0, which means we're cool, or 1, which means we're fighting. We're not going to be tolerating anything in between that. There is no you talking and me responding and you pushing this button and me pushing that button back. No, it doesn't work that way. So, whenever you step into that arena, you lose. And you also diminish yourself in her eyes. So, I will go ahead and exit now. We took a very sharp left curve at the end here, but I'm glad we did. Shout out to Shozan for bringing it up. We started talking about the dark side and we started talking about men and their interactions and their ways of dealing with the dark side versus the way women deal with the dark side. And that causes a whole lot of consternation because men don't know how to do the gradations because we only have 2 levels. Our interactions are very simple. Okay, I'm talking to SODC. We're either cool or we're gonna stab each other. There is no in between. Okay, there is no I'm gonna push his buttons. He's gonna push my buttons back, and then we're gonna go talk about each other. No, okay. So it is fair that a lot of men have a lot of difficulty talking to women, interacting with women, dealing with women in the social sphere, and understanding, especially in intimate relationships, intimate interpersonal relationships with women can be very tough for men and also tough for women too, right? But this is because we have very different ways of interacting. Men don't know anything about the gray area. We do not do the gray area. With women, it's all kinds, 50 shades, dare I say, of gray. Okay? 50 shades of gray. And we do not know how to do that stuff. And I advise men not to step into that arena. You need to know, master your domain and know the tools that you use and keep it there. Our tools are the tools of boundary setting. That's what we do. We don't play well in that other arena. You're never going to win there. You're just going to look like an idiot. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, quick recap and then we're out. We're talking about why you should meditate. Why you should meditate. This is part 2. We are talking about equanimity. We're talking about floating, balance, being at ease, being one with the internal and external environment. We talked about the fact that it is a counterpart to concentration and therefore it is implicitly valuable. Valuable, the flip side of concentration. We talked about the balance aspect. We talked about the fact that it is good for your health for obvious reasons. We talked about the fact that it allows you to control the fear and anxiety response, making such that you are not clinging or resisting. And then we close it up with the aesthetic aspect of things, which is, hey, guess what? When you have this capacity, you're actually cool. You are the cool kid. And you make other people feel comfortable. And people want to be around you. You're a pleasure to be around. You're pleasant to be around. You get what you want. We mentioned here, and this would be the conceptual nugget thrown into the pond today. We mentioned that equilibrium, especially unstable equilibrium, which we analogized over here with this ball tittering here, balanced up there. Unstable equilibrium is naturally aesthetically pleasing. And we gave that as a tidbit to those of you guys who like to go to museums and sound cool at cocktail parties. You can talk about unbalanced equilibrium being naturally, intuitively, aesthetically pleasing. So, why should you meditate? Part two, because of equanimity. Okay? So go out there and fight the battle within.
On the shore, relentless in the war, the legions in our hearts, shed waters in our balls, the spirit and the flesh, the emotions that arrest, the cerebral will contest, propelling the unrest. Preachers and bandits with means underhanded, the teachers pedantic and lack understanding. So sweep out the sand with the broom in your hand, stand up, make we burn Babylon. Guess I can give the world to you, but the falling of the curtain is for certain. Be careful where you lurking, demon searching. The spirit and the women fight the battle within. Cause I can give the world to you, but the falling of the curtain is for certain. Be careful where you're lurking, demon searching. The spirit and the women fight the battle within. With the semblance of a blaze, with gratitude and rage, we touch another page with delirious delight, impervious to light. This vitality and might encourages the flight. Preachers and bandits with means underhanded, the teachers pedantic and lack understanding. So sweep out the sand with the broom in your hand. Stand up, make we burn Babylon. Yes, I can give the world to you, but the falling of the curtain is for certain. Be careful where you're lurking, demon searching. The spirit and the women fight the battle within. Guess I can give the world to you, but the falling of the curtain is for certain. Be careful where you're lurking, demon searching. The spirit and the women fight the battle within. But the falling of the curtain is for certain. Be careful where you're lurking, demon searching. The spirit and the women fight the battle within. Cause I can give the world to you, but the falling of the curtain is for certain. Be careful where you're lurking, demon searching.